Welcome in then to the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you very much for your questions. Craig's with me in the studio, Frank Leboeuf and Shaka Hislop as well. Any update on Stevie's passport issue? In case you missed what happened last week, Stevie turned up at the airport with an expired passport, but managed to fly on his UK passport. However,
this is brilliant.
Yesterday, when he went to travel back from the UK to America, they refused to let him on the plane.
As predicted.
Because he didn't have a visa, which was necessary to fly on his UK passport. I had a phone call from 4 a.m. from him yesterday. I didn't answer it. Fortunately, it was what he thought I was going to do at 4 a.m. I have no idea. But I can tell you now, everything is resolved and he is on...
No, but can we explain what he has to do, though?
No, he doesn't have to do it anymore, apparently. Eleanor was... So initially we thought he'd have to come into the country...
On an Esther?
Leave the country and then come back in on his new US passport. Apparently they've given him a pass on that.
Who?
The immigration in Dublin.
I'll have that bit.
Oh, there we are. Yes, was he listening?
The Nickel Immigration LLC.
But he did have to be taken into one of the rooms of doom.
Oh.
Oh.
The smell.
Oh, the smell.
That's the only reason they let him in the country. That's the only reason they let him in. They took him in one of those rooms. They shut the door. Two immigration officers come in and went, oh man, let that man through.
Get him out. Get him out of here.
You honks.
For all, when you made your first start for the national team, did the manager let you know the night before to mentally prepare, or did they let you know the day of? What happened to you, Frank?
No, he said nothing. I played against Norway my first cap, but I came like a year before with the national team. But I was very surprised, and he put me in the middle of the park. I remember playing midfielder for like 20 minutes. I think he wanted to surprise me. I didn't expect to play that game, and it was only a surprise and a nice one. And I mean, it would have been strange for me to know that the coach would have planned, maybe a day before to put me in, or to put me on, sorry. But because that's not how football should be thought. I think you deal with the events and with the event, and I was pleased to be on when he asked me to do so.
Shaka?
I didn't make my debut for Trinidad and Tobago, or my senior debut, until I was 30 years old. I remember I had this standoff with Jack Warner where I refused to come back until being persuaded by Bertil Sinclair. And at that point, I just really assumed that I'd be starting. I'd been playing the Premier League for a few years at that point.
Ooh, all right, Jack.
Oh, I really didn't want the whole backstory.
It was a friendly. It was a friendly. It was a friendly as well. It was a friendly, so it was easy to pick me.
I was 30 years old, and I was an established Premier League goalkeeper then. And
You just talked about this last week, didn't you? Your Scotland debut, wasn't it in Asia?
Japan.
Yeah.
I don't know how you pronounce
Hiroshima?
it.
Or Hiroshima?
Hiroshima or Hiroshima, however you pronounce it.
Well, there we are.
And yeah, nothing to say.
Well, when did you know?
I can't remember. I think it was the day before.
Were you nervous?
I was a bit nervous, yeah. The Kieran Cup, very big.
Were you 30? How old were you?
I was 23, I believe, and yeah, that's all you need to know.
Okay.
You don't need a backstory.
All right.
A boring backstory.
Wow, don't have a go at Frank's backstory.
It was Shaka.
Oh, Shaka's backstory.
Our Bolivian expert.
For Craig, start, bench, drop. The Ballon d'Or ceremony. Football.
Why do I get these questions all the time?
Football at the Olympics or international break friendlies?
Do you know what? What's the point?
That's a good one.
Football at Olympics, under 23s, right? And a couple of old geezers.
Yeah.
Right? It's not. You see, all these Olympic sports that have been squeezed in now, it's a waste of time.
So you're starting that.
What's the other one?
Ballon d'Or, international break friendlies.
Football at Olympics, bosh, gone.
Right.
Ballon d'Or, gone.
Right.
I'll put up with the friendlies.
Put up with the friendlies. Frank, do you have the same opinion of football at the Olympics? Because Mbappe obviously wants to play, doesn't he? He's made no secret of it.
Yeah, but I don't care. Nothing to do in the Olympics. I think the Olympics are for people who are supposedly amateurs, who have you give a chance to be in the lights of the world, in the spotlights of the world, for like sometimes 15 days. football players, basketball players, tennis players have nothing to do in the Olympics. I know it's all about money, but it's not the spirit of the Olympics.
If you're an Olympian, right, the Olympians, the athletes, men, women, whatever, they're all the very best at their sport, right? The decathletes, pentathletes, all these events, whatever, 100-metre sprint, all the...
You can name every event.
Yeah, javelin, discus, high hurdle, triple jump,
Shot put, walking.
shot put.
Walking.
What's that one where they do and the skis and they shoot things? Well, that's not a sport.
Yes.
That's not a sport.
Well, shooting things to a sport, isn't it?
Get the gun off, shoot something.
I think that's Winter Olympics.
Is that Winter Olympics?
Yes.
It's still not a
Biathlon,
sport.
that's the
There you
winter,
are. Right.
winter
What
games,
else?
winter
What
Olympics.
else? Oh, I used to love the 800 metres, 1500. But
Yes.
all the Olympians are elite, the best. Take soccer, football.
Yeah.
It's not the elite players. So tell me how they're Olympians. If there's a couple of older players and a bunch of young guys, so no, it's not. That's not Olympics.
Shaka, would you like to name any Olympic events?
Come on, name one that I've not named.
I can't name any that Craig didn't touch on.
High jump. What about the high jump?
Do you remember when Shaka went to Brazil and was the commentator for the Olympics? Shaka, what did you have to commentate on? Didn't you have to do like synchronized swimming and things?
I commentated on gymnastics. I
Yes.
commentated on rowing, on sailing. You have no idea.
Wow.
Hold on. How did you manage? How did you pull that off?
Yeah, do you remember? That was for the Brazil Olympics.
Yeah.
Him and Alexis went.
How the hell did he pull
Yeah.
that off?
What did you
Well,
say?
he brought the Caribbean angle, didn't he?
The rowing.
Yeah.
What the hell does he know about rowing?
Well, it doesn't know
Yeah.
much about football, so it's all right.
Nothing.
He knows a lot about
I
Bolivia,
know
Argentina
nothing about
today.
rowing.
Olympics.
All right. I remember the hype, Shaka, around Wayne Rooney when he first hit the spotlight as a teenager. How beneficial is it for Bellingham that he's in Spain and not in England when it comes to the media?
Listen, I think everybody handles that initial hype differently, and you know, you can't question Wayne Rooney and the way he was able to handle it, and the career that he went on to have. At the same time, you understand Bellingham's choice to leave Birmingham to go to Germany because he felt that would give him the best opportunity to develop his game. I think, you know, drawing those comparisons one way or the other doesn't make much sense. I don't think you can question the outcome, certainly, with those two.
Well, it didn't affect. How did it affect Wayne Rooney? I mean, he got himself in a few scrapes with the newspapers and stuff, but that was kind of his own doing. His career never was affected by it, really. And the media, and you've been part of the media in Madrid.
Yes, yeah, I have.
So they don't exactly roll out the red carpet when Real Madrid lose, do they? Oh, wonderful. So he's going to get, I don't know, he'll get stick in Madrid, he'll get stick in England.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I agree. Everywhere, you know, Italy, Spain, Germany as well, England, France as well. You know, if you have a bad day with a bad game, you're gonna get sticks, and that's what it is. But you know, in England you have what you call the tabloids, which is different. They try to have an outside of your life as a football player. So, but if you go back home and you stick, you know, you're very professional, nothing big deal should happen to you.
Yeah, just like Craig was. Next question. So, Dan, did you take the magic leaf home? So I'm walking today. I'm taking Poppy for a walk, and I see this leaf. Look, here it is, just floating there.
I saw that.
How cool.
It's beautiful.
How
Beautiful.
cool is that? I know.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Forrest
by
Gump.
it.
You are Forrest
Let me just
Gump
say,
now.
There is no way I was hanging around.
Why?
It looks like a burnt dollar note.
No,
I was
look, it's a
running for
leaf
my
just
life.
Hanging. This haunted leaf that I saw walking the dog.
That's not a
See?
leaf.
What do you mean it's not a leaf?
I
What
am
is
not
it
hanging
then?
around to figure it out.
It's a flat bat.
It's a flat bat.
No,
What is
it's
a bat? What is a bat floating there at 9 o'clock in the morning?
Try and bite you.
I don't think so.
Why are you filming them?
Well, because I was like, wow, look at this. I've never seen a floating leaf like this before.
I reckon you've set this up.
What do you mean?
Some contraption to make it look as if it's floating. Filmed it to try and make yourself look windswept and interesting.
How would I... Why am I windswept in this story? Why am I windswept?
To your social media gatherers.
Why do I want to be windswept?
That was a Billy Connolly
right
terminology.
It was brilliant.
Was it?
I didn't. I just left it there for others to enjoy.
It's fantastic that. What an exciting life you lead.
I know.
You go out in the morning, there's a floating leaf, you film it.
How many times do you see a floating leaf in your life?
You have fun about it all day.
I know.
Amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Well,
we've peaked.
Well, Dan,
we've
the last
peaked
time I saw that was in Forrest Gump with the feather. You know, you could see
Forrest Gump with the feather.
What's
that? American Beauty as well.
Yeah.
Did you have no inclination to kick it?
No, I didn't kick it. It was just like it's a natural miracle, and I wanted others to enjoy it.
Get on with it.
I wasn't hanging around.
Frank, is Paul Pogba the biggest example of unfulfilled talent?
Hold on.
Well, I would have to think about that, but I think he's not the only one. He did well until when he reached what he was at Juventus. It was really absolutely fantastic when he played for Juventus, and it's why Manchester United wanted him to go back. And
he won a World
explained
Cup
during the show. And he won the World Cup. But I think he went back to Manchester United where maybe it wasn't the right time for any player to go there because it was a big mess. So that was a mistake, a bad choice. And it wasn't particularly good, but maybe it stopped his career. And now, as Craig said, he's on the slippery slope, and it's hard to get back into the business. So he's not the biggest example of somebody who didn't finish or didn't do well overall because he had some good picks. But so many other players should be named. I don't have names in my head popping out, but no, Pogba had a decent career, let's say.
People need to slow down. Some people really need to give their head a wobble. I mean, he won the title. He won titles in Italy. I think he played in that Champions League final, certainly at least one in Cardiff.
Yes.
He had 2 spells at Man United, right? Whether you agree with him or not. I think he did well or didn't. And he won a World Cup. Hello. I mean, don't think people realise the amount of talented players out there that they don't know about, that just completely just hose their career away, right? He's made something of his career, something pretty good. And I think people really get, it's black and white, right? You've got to be 5 Champions League, 3 World Cups, all this, or it's a waste. There's tons of players who come along and should have great careers, and as I said, just chuck it all away. Paul Pogba has not chucked it all away. He's just not been able to maximise what could have been amazing. Now that's a big difference from being a waster, what I would call a waster. And I've played with a couple of guys over the years who were, Frank and I played with Zola, and there's so many great players I've played with, so I think we're pretty good judges when you see somebody and you go, boy, this guy could have been a player.
Right.
And they just didn't have the desire like these greats did. They didn't have the desire, and there's plenty of those, but I wouldn't put Pogba in that category for sure.
Now, my problem with that, Craig, my problem with that is that we always remember the last years, of a career. Like everybody's going to remember Eden Hazard as a flop, or Gareth Bale maybe, and now Paul Pogba. But what they've done to reach that level, to be criticized at that level because being on the slippery slope, it's because they've been at the top, and they reached the top being very good. Eden Hazard was the best number 10 in the world at some point. Paul Pogba was maybe one of the best players in the middle of the park in a while. And Gareth Bale, Gareth Bale scored so many goals, won the Champions League, and you can say whatever you want. Maybe he wasn't as professional as he should have been, but he was good enough to sign for Real Madrid. And yeah, we sometimes remember only the last times of a career, the last moment of the career, but we forget the entire career. And sometimes you had some players who struggle like crazy at the beginning of their career to finally get something good and be named as one of the biggest players. But it wasn't the same. Ribéry, for example, Frank Ribéry, was kicked out of Marseille, had to go to Galatasaray, and come back to Marseille like 5 years after to become the player that he was. And you can have so many examples of the contrary of what happened to Paul Pogba, Eden Hazard, and Gareth Bale.
Did you see the McEnroe interview last night?
With Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
It was on, I wasn't really focusing on it.
When McEnroe is a Jets fan, and this was obviously before the game, so they didn't know obviously what happened to Aaron Rodgers being out for the season, but he said to him, you worried about your legacy from being at the Packers and coming to the Jets, and if it doesn't work, I've spent all this money. And he said to McEnroe, Rodgers said to McEnroe, how many majors did you win? And he went, 7. He went, just because your career waned at the end, do you think your 7 majors are not worth anything? And I was like, McEnroe was like, oh, you're right. So that, people just, looked at Rodgers and it was like, all the questions, if it doesn't work here in terms of your performance, has the rest of your career been a disaster? And that's kind of on the theme of this sort of question here. It's a rather bugging, to be honest.
Can I go to Shaka? Shaq?
Listen, I thought both Craig and Frank summed it up perfectly. It is, in truth, a pretty ridiculous question. The other aspect to this is, and I think this has played Paul Pogba over recent years, is you see exactly how important it is to have good people around you, whether it's friends or, in Pogba's circumstance, family, and how easily people who don't have your best interest can derail your career. Now, Paul Pogba has to accept some responsibility, but at the same time, I think we all sometimes take for granted how fortunate we all are to have people who aren't actively stabbing you in the back while you're trying to build a career for yourself.
For all, who should feel more aggrieved about not winning the Ballon d'Or? Lewandowski or Erling Haaland? So Lewandowski, of course, didn't win it in 2020.
Absolutely done.
2021.
I'm at the bottom of the
barrel. Shaka, who should be more aggrieved if Haaland doesn't win it, or Lewandowski, of course, when he didn't win it when they cancelled it all?
I think Lewandowski of the two should be more aggrieved. I just think Lewandowski, given the season he wanted, broke Gerd Muller's record in the year, and again, as I felt Messi should have won it a couple of years ago as well. But that was on the back of Argentina winning the Copa America. I think again, Argentina winning the World Cup carries even more gravitas. So Haaland, as a result, feels less aggrieved.
For Craig, when will someone? We talked about Harry Maguire quite a lot during the show. Why are you breathing?
I'm got a feeling what ways this question's going to go, but I just like...
For Craig, when will someone protect Harry Maguire from Harry Maguire? Have you ever wanted your manager not to pick you in order to shield you from public scrutiny during a bad run of form?
So, don't select him.
Don't select him to protect him.
Protect him from who? Look, I don't agree with some of the stick from the stands that Harry Maguire has got and has had to deal with, but we've all had it. And you can't hide behind the sofa until it goes away. The only way it goes away is by playing better. And that's difficult when you're in that scenario. But hiding is not an issue. And dropping him all the way down is not an issue. Because he's needed for Man United, for Carabao Cup, and maybe even the league, because they've got all these injuries. What's Ten Hag going to do? Go, oh my God, I've got no centre-halves this week, but old H is getting a bit of a panning from the crowd, so I'll just tell him to have a weekend at home with the missus, go and do a bit of shopping, we'll cope, pick up the 3 points, just in case he gets a bit of stick. Unfortunately, that's not the real world. The world that we operate in and we have operated in is a very vindictive and often difficult place to be when you're not playing well. But guess what? The only way to get over the line is to keep fighting through it.
When you were going through a rough patch, Shaq, as a team, be it with Pompey or elsewhere, did you see players kind of hiding and almost not want to get picked because they don't want to be involved in that kind of scrap?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that happens more often than I think players will willingly admit. When things aren't going well, you're quite happy to hide, and especially given, depending on the club and the fan base and how vocal or abusive that fan base is, you see it all the time. It takes a brave player to kind of step up in those circumstances. You also see those players who maybe aren't having a great time, but don't hide, and those players always get maximum respect from their teammates. That for me is bravery on a football field.
If you go back and look at last year's bottom 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League, and you look at it again this year, if you go back and look at how many injuries the teams that are really under pressure pick up towards the end of the season, you'll be surprised.
Because this niggle, I can't play, I don't want to face it, I don't want that abuse.
I think a niggle in the calf or a niggle in the knee or a bruised joint becomes a more difficult scenario for a player who's in a difficult position and he's under pressure with his club, and they might be relegated, and he might be the guy to make a mistake. And how do you take an easy option? And in my experience, unfortunately, we didn't have that at Chelsea. We didn't have it at Celtic because 99% of the guys were fighters. But certainly in my time at Derby was in the Jim Smith era, when we were fighting tooth and nail, the treatment room was rammed.
How did you deal with that as one of the veterans, the captain of the
You can't
side?
do anything about it because you can't play the blame game. Unfortunately, you can't walk in to the treatment room and go, you're not injured, and you're not injured.
Right.
Because that's a difficult place to be. But I think deep down, you know the guys that will play if they have to get over the line. Right. And the guys that, if as a 50-50, they're going on the side of not playing.
Frank, have you experienced that?
Oh.
Yes, I did, and especially at the beginning of my career in Laval, where we were in a bad situation and we've been relegated after, and I saw players and I discovered that world, seeing players hiding and pretending to be injured, not playing, and leaving the club going down. And I was 20, and I was very surprised. And I have a list of names that will keep for me, but I wouldn't want it to be at war with those players, because I'm pretty sure they will be ready to shoot at me, just to save their lives. So it's very strange to see those kind of players behaving, where they do the best job in the world, not willing to play to save their butts, and just hiding with the physios, saying that they're injured. And that's not fair for the others. That's not fair for the fans. That's of course not fair for the fans. But it happens. It happens. There's nothing much you can do. But yourself trying to find with the survivors, I would say.
Wow. Shaq, you wanted to add something?
Back in our day, Dan. Yeah, I was just. But I don't know the guys, because it was kind of universal with all the football clubs. You'd name it. So you'd have the Manchester United hamstring. Players who somehow pulled or got a tight hamstring whenever we were away to Old Trafford, and that's how we refer to it, kind of jokingly in the dressing room. But there's a serious side. There's a serious side to that. That's just how as players you kind of play it off and make a joke about it. But you know those players who would get Manchester United hamstrings.
But it's difficult.
Even worse. I know that, Craig. I'm sorry, but I know that there were some players who are trying to find an injury where nobody can say that you're really injured. And I know if you have an ankle problem, it's pretty hard to say if you really have an ankle problem, because you can have a bone inside the ankle who moved and it hurts you. And it's fair to say that you feel the pain and you cannot find the solution.
The back used to be a great one, particularly for...
Shaka always told me the back's
the back, Shaq, particularly for those players, and I don't know anybody that did this, but I've heard some stories about those players back in the day when the end of career insurance was a big thing.
Right.
And a bad back was always a good way, apparently, when they were finishing, because how do you detect it?
Sure.
You just get a bad back, lean over a little bit, and so but I think they got wise to stuff like that. But a bad back was always...
Oh, it's very interesting, boys. It's no magic leaf, but it's interesting.
No, but let me tell you one thing quickly, how you can't have a go at players. We had a guy at Celtic, Darren Jackson, Jacko, big mate of all the boys, great player, played in Newcastle, played for Hearts and Hibs, and came to Celtic, was a teammate of mine at Scotland. We were playing a UEFA Cup game at Celtic Park. He was on the bus, had a really bad headache, said he couldn't play or couldn't be on the bench. And the boys were, and he was up the back of the bus, going, God, his headache, just come on. The boys were like, this is not like Jacko, he wouldn't want to not play.
Right.
And luckily, the club doctor at the time, Jack Mulhern, was on the ball, took a look at him, didn't like what he saw, and it turned out he needed an operation on the brain.
Wow.
And Celtic...
So if you boys could be a headache, come on, get them play. I see.
Are you up the back? You're not playing with a headache.
That's Celtic, be careful.
Celtic were absolutely brilliant. The doc at the time, Brian Scott, the physio, and Jack Mulhern were brilliant. They had him straight in and went, something's not right here. Could tell where he's at. And he had some sort of problem, and it wasn't a minor brain operation, it was quite a big one. He was back playing within 2 or 3 months with a shaven head and everything. But yeah, it went from a headache on the bus to a brain. So you have to be a little careful.
Yeah, no, that's
Which I'm, you know.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.